The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Silverstone for tonight's presentation of the Atlantic Major Series Classic British Grand Prix. My name is Kelly Dahl, along with me is Andrew Cardinal and Trevin Valderrama, and as always, we have Cisco Scaramuza getting the picture to you. Well, it's been a while, but the Major Series is back, and it's back with what should be an interesting race. It's the Lotus 79 at Silverstone in some iconic British fog. And Andrew, how do you think this weather is going to really affect this race?
Well, of course, Kelly, cooler temps and I guess more moisture in the air is going to help with some grip, but it's also really going to affect seeing things down track. There's a wreck around a corner that wouldn't normally be exactly blind, but with the fog, it kind of impacts visibility. You might not see it, run up on it a little too quickly and suddenly be in an incident. So that's really, I think, the biggest challenge to these drivers. If anything, I think the cooler temps is just going to help give these guys some grip.
So we may see some faster times, and I think we already kind of are seeing these faster times. As the top times are about a 1:28.5, but I saw a lot of times in the the video that was shared amongst the participants to kind of prep them for this race. The time that I think I saw was a 1:32. So this weather has just cut absolute just seconds off these lap times. So I think we're going to have an extremely fast race.
Yeah, absolutely, and we just come here to a track like this with a great car combo with this track, and I'm really excited to see all these drivers go through all these twists and turns of this 2.93 mile track, almost 3 miles in length and 10 turns. And you talk about all the visibility, and it could make it a little bit more difficult if it may.
Well, we're going to get the points up on the board, and we'll see that Mike Kelly, he is currently leading the Atlantic split by quite a fair margin, I believe 89 points. And I think a few weeks back, he mentioned that his team has been focusing a lot on this race. So I'd expect to see Mike Kelly running up to the front, but at this moment, he's not quite sitting in the running in the times. That's Eric Smith running the fastest lap time. Mike Kelly's sitting a little bit further back, looks like in about 7th or 8th at the moment, but we'll have to definitely watch for him to see if he can maybe pull something out in the race. Riley Thompson's currently sitting in second of the points, followed by Thomas Peterson, Joshua Kanata, and Carl Burke. That is your top 5 for the point standings. And really, it still is a very tight points race. And the only real kind of breakout is Mike Kelly himself.
Yeah, Mike Kelly has just been dominating this series so far. Even going back to the Silver Crowns at Phoenix, there's something about Mike Kelly in this series. I don't really know what it is, but he just pulls away from these guys, and it's really been a race for second in the standings most of the season so far, Kelly. It's been really crazy to watch, honestly. It's kind of almost like Martin Truex 2017, but the battle for really second through fifth has been a lot of fun to watch. You have these guys pretty much all under a blanket, from Riley Thompson back to Carl Burke. That's going to be a battle to watch all day long here today.
You'll have to keep an eye on those, but as the time ticks closer and closer to that moment, these drivers are still trying to figure out the last little bits of their racing line, and I'd expect to see these lap times still remain to be very close. The top 5, I think, are just all separated by less than a second, so I think we're going to have an extremely tight race here, and it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, and that just goes back to the colder conditions here. It gives them all such a great advantage towards themselves and towards getting better lap times. And, we're going to see these tick off, obviously, as the tires go on. And, obviously, this could be a green flag race all the way to the end. So all the excitement's going to happen early. And if you want to be up in that excitement, you have to be fast and get a good starting position.
Well, that time on the clock ticks down to 0, and we are going to get ready to go racing. So we'll quickly bring you through our starting grid, which will be a standing start, I think, for the first time this season for the majors. But Eric Smith, he's going to be sitting on that pole, and he was also the fastest in practice. So watching him to try to get a good jump and take off to an early lead. Kevin Hill, he'll be starting in second, with Michael Lane lining up behind Eric Smith. Jake Fox will be lining up in that 4th position, and Ross Banfield in 5th.
Starting in 6th will be Richard McClure in the 65 car, followed by Rob Powers in the 47, starting 7th. Claude Belvaldi starting 8th. Lonnie Fitch rolls off 9th, with Rory Collins rounding out your top 10.
11th will go to Mike Kelly will go to P11. We are green.
Very quick start here. Eric Smith's going to roll off. Look at Kevin Hill on that outside. He's going to try to take over the race lead right off the bat. He's going to have that outside into the first corner. A little bit of a slide from Eric Smith. He catches it though, but Kevin Hill, he's going to take the race lead coming out of turn number 1.
Almost chaos through turn 1 with a couple of cars, but most of the field gets by, and they're going to continue on. I see Eric Smith still in the... No, I think he lost the lead to Kevin Hill. And really, I don't know what else to say. Turn 1 just was terrible for a couple of these guys. I'm not even sure who went off, but if we can get a replay on that, that'd be great. I think Carl Burke had a problem. Yeah, that was a turn 1.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaos as drivers try to take that first turn with cold tires, and that was another thing. We did mention that, yes, the cold temperatures will allow for grip, but that's once those tires get up to temperature, and that's not going to happen very fast with the cold race surface. But looking back for the race lead, Eric Smith trying to take it back. He's going to draft behind Kevin Hill, and now going to pull to the inside for this next corner, and that's going to allow him to shoot right along to the apex for the race lead. So Eric Smith taking back the race lead before this first lap is done.
Yeah, and all these drivers are fighting 1, 2, 3. Eric Smith, Kevin Hill, Michael Lane, all getting a great start compared to all the other drivers. Really knowing how to manage these tires under cool conditions and waiting for these tires to get heated up. And obviously they have a little bit more heat in them right now because they are just plowing through the corner. Kevin Hill able to pull that is Eric Smith able to pull a sizable gap coming to lap 2. Kevin Hill and Michael Lane trying to catch him down.
And Michael Lane getting a bit of a run-up on Kevin Hill out of turn 1. And he backs out. Pretty smart move there, but I think that 62 might have something here, at least for Kevin Hill, if not for Eric Smith as well. I'm not sure exactly how these guys are going to gap each other. This is my first time really working with these cars, but so far it seems like this top 3 is just driving away from 4th on back, and I think Michael Lane might be one of the better of the 3.
They do have a surprising amount of downforce. They may not look it with a relatively simple wings, but these cars were from the ground effect era, so they can stay very planted to this racing surface. But at the same time, they're a little touchy. We saw it early on with Eric Smith in that first corner getting a little loose, but now watching Michael Lane, he's trying to catch Kevin Hill, and he's going to try to make the same move Eric Smith pulled 1 lap before, swings to the outside on that easy sweeper so he can get the inside of this next corner. He's going to take over 2nd place, but a little bit slower through the corner, but there's no gap for Kevin Hill to make a move, so Kevin's got to back out and try to see if he can find another way to get back up into 2nd place, but he's actually going to go a little wide through this next corner. Now Ross Banfield's going to get himself quietly into the picture, trying to look to see if he can get himself into that podium position. And as we're talking about this, Eric Smith has started to run away. He's already opened up a 2.7 second gap over Michael Lane. And at this point, unless these drivers can figure out a new way to find some speed, they're going to have to... Eric Smith is going to just basically be out of this. He's going to be gone.
Yeah, Eric Smith with sizable cap, still 2 seconds now, and these guys just have to make sure that they're going to hit their marks in every single turn of this track. Obviously conditions a little bit different than what we usually see. Now we have a little fight going on for 4th place with Ross Banfield and Jake Fox, I believe. Now the number 8 of Jake Fox taking that position away, and the number 65 of Richard McClure looking and trying to get it around him in this little chicane section.
And it looks like Jake Fox has actually got a little bit of speed as he's closed up that gap to Ross Banfield just a little bit, even while making that one pass there. But at the same time, now he's got to worry about what's going on behind him, because Ross Banfield, even though he got past, did not give up. He's still right on the rear bumper of that 08 machine, and just behind him, Richard McClure stacked up as well. So we have got quite an intense battle for that third position. And now at this moment, we've also got to worry about Eddie Hawks as a lap car in the way, and actually Eddie is going to pull into the pit road. So some problems for the 45 machine. He's already gone down a lap, and luckily going to get out of the way before this huge battle for third goes by.
Yeah, this is a big old gaggle of cars as they go off into turn one. I believe that was Ross Banfield making a bit of an optimistic move and tried to get up to Jake Fox. Didn't quite work. He lost some time now as Kevin Hill is starting to fall back to Jake Fox, and Jake Fox goes a bit off track. So these guys really battling, I guess, with being behind another car, losing some nose down force. And of course, that's part of it, I guess, with these open wheel cars. You get behind somebody, you lose a lot of your front turns. So we'll see how these guys can manage with that if they just poke out, try and get some downforce on the front wing. But as you mentioned, Kelly, these cars actually have a lot of grip, and part of it just goes to the size of the tires they have on these things. They are absolutely massive.
Yeah, that is another thing. Yes, they have a bit of grit, aerodynamic grip, but as you mentioned, that mechanical grip as well for these cars, for these huge rear tires, especially the huge, especially the rear ones, as I was trying to say there. These cars have some fantastic grip, but still a little bit of sensitivity to aero. But also another thing for them to keep in mind is we're watching a bit of a battle for that third place between Kevin Hill and Jake Fox. Jake trying to find a gap, and he's going to try to undercut Kevin, but not quite able to make the move there. And runs wide as he nearly gets into the rear end of Kevin Hill. And now he's going to fall back into the clutches of Ross Banfield. Those two are going to try to battle it out to basically be the next in line to go after that podium spot.
And during practice, a lot of drivers were having difficult times going through that last section, especially the hairpin towards the end of it. And I'm not surprised that these guys are getting a little squirrely right there, trying to give it everything they have. Now, they do have 64 laps in this total race with about a minute and a half. That's over an hour. So, these guys have to settle in and get ready to go, trying to log some laps, but still trying to make sure that these guys are not trying to get too far ahead of them, and just making sure that they have a good sizable gap on them.
Speaking of sizable gaps, there's a sizable gap between Eric Smith and Michael Lane, 3.4 seconds, and then between Lane and Hill, we've got another basically 4 seconds to the next driver. So it's pretty much first place and second place are running their own races. We don't see the battle until we get to third, where it's the battle between Hill, Banfield, Fox, and McClure and Kelly are starting to get themselves involved in this as well, as they kind of sit back just a few seconds, and McClure trying to make a move actually on Jake Fox at this moment.
Yeah, Richard McClure has been watching these guys from just behind this battle, and finally has a chance to get after Jake Fox in the 08 as Banfield and Hill do battle in front of them. But really, I've been watching this 65 car of Richard McClure just kind of wait in the balance, trying to wait for an opportunity to get some spots. And right here, he almost had a chance to get by Jake Fox. Now trying to take the inside line as Fox is hung up high, can't get underneath him. They're going to have to wait till turn one.
Yeah, and always have to make sure turn one and every other turn is very smooth, and make sure everybody can get through it cleanly. But obviously, we saw a little bit of hesitation at that start, and cold tires. Obviously, a lot of drivers wanted to get through it very quickly, but that was not the case with quite a few of them. But still has a good battle shaping up for third on or second on back, and all these drivers still trying to get themselves settled in and start thinking about pit stops now. You got to start thinking about it. You got to make sure that you can make it on fuel and make it on good tires. So I'm sure a lot of things are running through their head, and some of these guys don't have crew chiefs and starting to do math by themselves, but that could start getting a little bit more difficult as they are racing around traffic as well.
Another thing for them to keep in mind is there is an incident limit in place for this race, and that is a 34 incidents over the course of 64 laps. And a lot of these drivers are not sitting with too many right now. There's a couple of them with one or two, but most of the drivers know these track limits and are playing within them. So I don't think we're going to see that really come into play, but which is really a thankful thing. But right now still watching Kevin Hill trying to hold off charging Ross Banfield, but at the same time, Banfield's under fire from Jake Fox. Again, going through this final section, which will set them up for the straightaway in the fast turn 1. And we'll have to see if anyone's going to be able to maybe try to catch a draft and make a move into turn 1. But with the way this first turn is, I don't expect to see anyone really willingly attempt to go side by side through it.
Yeah, most of these guys are playing pretty smart right now. It is still really early. We are currently on lap 7 of 64. So I think these guys are going to sit back for a while, get a grip on things, and maybe test the track limits a little bit there like Jake Fox did. But I think they're really just going to sit in line for a little while, try and get to the first pit stop. And I believe we will have at least tire pit stops, right?
Most likely. I believe there is going to be I don't think they'll be able to quite go the full distance on fuel either. 64 laps is quite a ways, and we'll have to watch to see what the call is going to be for these drivers, because a pit stop strategy might be what's needed for Michael Lane to be able to catch up to Eric Smith, as that gap remains at 4 seconds. But Michael Lane really just has no pressure at all, because that's another about 7 seconds between him and Kevin Hill.
So currently, as Richard McClure is still watching this battle ahead, Banfield has actually fallen behind Jake Fox once more, and now Jake Fox trying to get after the 12 car of Kevin Hill. These guys still under a blanket, though, battling from 3rd on back to really 7th, as Mike Kelly is even joining the fray. Our points leader starting to watch this battle from afar and actually has started to catch up to these guys.
Yeah, and with pits, could take tires, but with such big tires, there's a lot of tread on them, so it takes a while for them to wear. 64 laps is a lot, but there's mostly straightaway sections. There's 10 turns in totals, but compared to all the straightaways that they're running, it's not that wary on the tires. But when you take new tires, obviously it's going to be really cold, and with this cold surface that they are working on, it's going to make it harder for them to go up at 72 on the track surface right now. So it's going to take a full probably lap and a half to go. So I'm not sure if we're going to see pit stops. It's going to be interesting to see how these drivers are going to work with them and see how these tires wear over the next couple laps.
Yeah, we're getting word that these cars should be able to make it all the way on fuel. It's going to be up to the drivers to take tires if they want. And coming from the word from the drivers that race in the European split, it takes a long time to heat up these tires, actually all the way up to 3 or 4 laps to get them fully up to temperature. And as you mentioned, that's just part of really the cold surface, and it gives you a lot of grip, and once the tires are up to heat, but as mentioned at the beginning of this race, it takes a long time to get them up to heat. And we saw right off the bat, even our race leaders struggled with the cold tires, as he nearly lost control of the car in the very first turn of this race.
Yeah, it's large surface area tires on cold pavement with pretty much just cold temperatures. No sun on the track to heat things up. It's very challenging to get tires up to heat, and of course I believe all splits of the major series always have the same weather conditions, so that's nice that we have that little bit of info there in the chat. But as this battle continues on, pretty much, again, still just 3rd through 7th under a blanket, and I believe they actually even caught a lapped car.
Diggs.
Yeah, Jonathan Diggs.
Yeah, making around 3 wide for a second. Excuse me, Andrew, but you got to make sure that you're adapting to everything that's thrown at you. And going into this turn right here, still got a whole entire gaggle of cars. The number 12 machine of Kevin Hill getting quickly chased down by Ross Banfield, and these drivers just get so close. But again, catching one car is something, but passing is a completely different thing, and could be a lot different to how these drivers are going to be running. So still seeing it single filed, not really mixing it up a little bit, still early on in this race and still have a while to go. And this is a completely different car track combo than what they ran previously. And the thing with the major series is you're always running a different car, so that's what I like about this series.
Yeah, the goal of this series is to find the most adaptable driver, and that's why the trophy is named after Mario Andretti, who is really considered to be the most adaptable all-around driver. And we've seen Mike Kelly, he's been kind of the guy to beat, and a lot of times we've seen him in the high downforce cars really excelling, but it seems that this race he's not quite on top. Eric Smith's the guy that's really running away, and Mike Kelly at this moment is just, he's fat. He's got the speed, but he's just struggling to get around this traffic that he's got in front of him, because he's got that whole stack up in that battle for third, which is really almost a five-way battle at this moment.
Yeah, these guys are just continuing to do battle, and it's really just a magnificent thing to watch. A little further back, Brandon Whitworth, Claude Belval are still going at it. But really, I think anywhere you look, for the most part, through like the top 15, seems to be some sort of battle, aside from maybe Brian Barney and the top two, of course, who've just checked out entirely. But really, this is a magnificent race so far, trying to use some different words. Anyway, it's been a really cool race to watch so far. I've never really done anything with the Lotus 79 other than when iRacing is down, maybe, you know, chuck it around Canadian Tire a couple of times. This is really cool for me to watch as somebody who's brand new to this car. I am honestly probably going to go buy it right after this race.
Yeah, and you know, you talk a lot about adapting, and you know, we're seeing a lot of drivers adapt, and probably Kelly, this is the first time that majority of these drivers have raced this the first time as well, and they're doing a great job. You know, we saw a few drivers, you know, get off, but that was just because, you know, tires were cold, and they've rebounded really nicely, and we have 21 drivers on the lead lap right now, and as you said, the first two drivers have checked out completely, which is really impressive. You know, it's really cool to see all these drivers just do everything. And now we have a battle going on for 6th place that was right there in turn number 1 between Richard McClure and Mike Kelly. But it's all simmered down for the second. But, you know, these drivers are just trying to find a different place where they're good at and where they can catch. You see Mike Kelly still trying to get to that back bumper, or back fender, I should say, of Kevin Hill, but still battling it out, lap 11.
And these guys that are battling need to figure something out, because now Jake Fox, after he took over that 3rd place, he started to check out and open up a gap of his own. So if these drivers don't start sorting themselves out and chasing down Jake Fox, he might, the whole podium might just pull out a full gap over the rest of the field, as he's already opened up about 1.5 seconds at this moment.
Yeah, and that's really good for Jake Fox if he can get separated from this field like he has so far, at least from the guys he was battling, because he can just run on his own, run laps, and start to try and maintain the gap ahead, where at least he doesn't lose anymore to Michael Lane. Of course, when you're battling with cars, you're losing time to guys ahead of you, so definitely getting separated from guys like Ross Banfield, Kevin Hill, Richard McClure, and even Mike Kelly is actually, I think Mike Kelly just went for a bit of a spin. That's a good thing for Jake Fox, but Mike Kelly having some issues here in the final corners of this lap.
Yeah, and you know, that was, again, that same section of the park that I saw a lot of drivers have a lot of problems with. That was, I believe that was the driver. Ooh, that was a lap down driver, I believe. And you know, you just got to make sure that you're racing within your limits and making sure that. Oh, that was Mike Kelly, the number 3 go around, and you know, again, testing those track limits and making sure that everything happens within what you can drive it in, but you know, still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it just looked like a bit of a tank slapper as he started to get loose in the one direction, tried to correct it, and the car just whipped around the other way. And thankfully, he's able to keep racing. He doesn't seem to have any damage, just kind of a lazy spin off into the runoff area. Was able to get that car sorted out, and he's back underway, but that definitely cost him a lot of time, as now he's all the way back into 8th, and he's trying to catch down Claude Belval, who's just pulled away in front of him.
Yeah, Belval and Whitworth finally caught the tail end of that battle, and Belval was able to take advantage of Kelly going through the grass there. And since then, I really think Claude might have a pretty decent car too, but really with these tires getting up to temperature, well, they've been up to temperature for a while, and they're just starting to run tread off them, really wear these tires out. We're going to start seeing these guys start to separate, I think. They just can't quite hang with each other now. They're starting to notice that they don't have quite as much grip as they did before. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know exactly the tire life. Of course, the guys from the European split can probably give us more info on that in the chat. But I really think we're going to start to see some massive fall off here soon. They've been running pretty hard. Granted, they have these cooler temps, but they've been running pretty hard, and I think we're going to start to see them plateau.
Yeah, and looking at the times right now, it's a mix between 31 and 30-second runs in laps. So still pretty good, but I'm sure they're going to start falling off pretty soon. It's going to get more and more hectic for these drivers in and out of every single turn. Still doing a great job. Only seen a few incidents, but you know, now that you're starting to see them spread out a little bit, you just got to think to yourself, how am I going to get to the back bumper of these drivers? I say bumper because I'm just so used to it because I'm usually an oval guy. Really enjoy stepping over to roadsides every now and again because, you know, I love this kind of racing, trying to figure out how you're going to get to the back of him, but it's just really hard with only 10 turns, really. Usually you see a lot more. You know, you just got to make sure that you're better in a section that the driver in front of you is not better.
Well, speaking of drivers getting better, Ross Banfield and Jake Fox, you mentioned that the tires may be wearing off, but if you were to look at those lap times, you definitely would not be able to tell because just a couple laps ago, they both ran their fastest laps of the race, and these drivers are still trying to chase after each other. Banfield's not going to let Jake Fox check out like the rest of the podium. He's trying to be able to chase him down and get himself back into that fight for the last podium spot.
Yeah, Banfield's definitely hunting that 08 car down, and he's not too far away. Kevin Hill also is only about a second back of Banfield, so really, these guys are still pretty close to each other. Granted, they've spread out just a little bit, but really, I think this is going to be kind of the name of the game for a while until we see the first few pit stops. They're just going to be kind of spread out by a few tenths until they can actually get up to somebody, make a pass. And even then, I'm not sure of the fight that they can actually put on to defend a position. Of course, you know, you can get down to that inside lane and just take the shorter way around the corner, but you have to then give up entry speed, and they can just go right around on the outside if they get into the corner, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys work with the tire fall off and actually trying to battle here as Banfield gets by a lapped car there. But really, though, things have really calmed down, and Eric Smith is now out to an 11.5-second lead. I mean, at one point I was thinking Michael Lane was the best of the top three, and that was definitely wrong.
Yeah, searching back for cars in the further back in the field, and you know, just drivers making sure that they're still going to be able to contend at the end of this race every which way. And you know, you gotta love all of the heart of these drivers, just making sure that they're still in it and not really pushing the limits too far. And if they do, they are able to recuperate and bounce back so quick that it doesn't really affect them as much as, you know, some other drivers might have, and you know, keep it off the wall. You know, there's a lot of runoff route that I've noticed, and just really done a good job of keeping it, you know, off the wall and keeping damage under control.
Looking back, though, at Mike Kelly, he's trying to chase down Claude Belval, and he nearly caught him earlier, but now he's Claude has pulled out a bit of a gap, but now they're also starting to catch up to some lap traffic of their own as they come up to Jason Wallet, and luckily they're going to catch him, it seems, in this straightaway section, but at the moment, Claude not quite pulling enough speed to get around him, and that's going to allow Mike Kelly to get right up behind him, so definitely a good opportunity for Kelly to be able to bounce back and maybe get himself up at least one more position.
And that's what Mike needs to do. He just needs to come into Silverstone, have a pretty good run here, and on to the next race. I mean, we see these guys have NASCAR races. The Indy 500 was run not too long ago. They really run everything, like you guys were mentioning earlier, in a big battle here. I don't know what the section of the track is called, but that was pretty cool to watch. Mike Kelly going pretty much 3 wide, and now I believe that's Belval on his left side going off into the final few corners of the lap, and Mike Kelly going to try crossover, doesn't quite get it done. But really, Mike Kelly, as far as a points leader, just needs to come in today and have a good show and get on to the next week. Just needs to keep doing the same thing, just chipping away at it. Obviously, he's got almost a 100-point lead as Jake Fox goes off track. He gets back on, going to continue on. I think he only lost 1 spot as Belval draws alongside of him coming to the start-finish.
Yeah, the 1 spot could quickly turn into 2 or 3 that we're seeing right now, and you know, you get off and you go in contact between Jake Fox and I believe that was Claude Belval. So very unfortunate for him going into turn number 1, as we talked about, and just got him in the right rear and spun him around in the off track.
Get a replay up on your screen, and as we mentioned, that is a very tough corner, very high speed corner, and not a corner that you want to go side by side through too often. And looks like Claude was just trying to get himself to the apex, and at the same time there was another car there, but I don't know who could really say at fault unless we take another look at it. Looks like maybe Jake could have been a little bit more towards that inside, but looking at Jake Fox, he's got some heavy damage to that rear wing, so that car was struggling at that moment when they caught up to him.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, Jake Fox, of course, was definitely moving backwards. We could see him starting to lose, I guess, some grip in the 08, and he just kind of pushed up through the first corner. He just pushed up into Claude Belval, I think. Of course, you know, you had the replay there on your screen, so you guys can see it for yourselves. I really think he just got into the corner a little bit too hot. It's nothing he tried to do or anything like that. He was just trying to take the corner, pushed up just a little bit in the Claude, and sent him around.
Yeah, you know, you're just trying to get every single, you know, inch of space that you can, and you know, it's just two guys fighting for the same piece of real estate, and it just didn't work out too well. But you know, racing incidents do happen. It's a part of racing. It's, you know, everything that these drivers do. So, you know, Claude Belval still has to, you know, recuperate and bounce back. You know, he's fallen back a few positions, so still in it for the most part. Looking back for Jake Fox and MP number 9, that is, and he is in the pit stops probably for that repair of the front wing, because, you know, damage can happen, and obviously we've seen it happen, and you know, just it relies so much on aero, these cars, and you know, without that extra downforce, it's just really a handful, and I'm sure he just doesn't want to deal with that for the rest of the race and put himself into the wall or something.
Well, he already had, before that corner, he already had some heavy damage to the rear wing. He was going the previous corner in that final hairpin. Richard McClure got into the rear end of him, and that caused him some damage. So I just think that Jake didn't know what the extent of his damage was until he went into that first turn and just realized that car wasn't going to be going where he wanted it to go. And that's what really kind of led to that incident, is he tried to take the corner like he normally would and didn't realize that that rear wing of his was just all bent out of shape.
Yeah, and again, it's certainly nothing intentional on Jake's part, just a bit of a mistake there, and it happens. It's racing. Bad things will happen sometimes. Mistakes are going to happen. Nobody's perfect. He continues on. He loses some positions. Last time by the scoring loop, he was nice, but that's certainly going to change with the pit stop, so we'll see where he comes out, where he cycles back in. Currently, though, if we go back up towards that battle that he was in, Brendan Whitworth has actually run down Mike Kelly after all that happened, and from there, it's a 5-second gap forward to Richard McClure, who is 4 seconds behind Kevin Hill. And actually, there's some lap cars in the mix now as the leaders start to come through the tail end of the field.
Yeah, and you know, fighting through lap traffic is always going to be a thing here at any road course, that is. But you know, 17 cars on the lead lap, and it doesn't make anything easy for the leader. He just wants to run his race, run his lines, but he sees a car in front of him, and you know, he's going to have to make the occasional pass. So good on him for making sure that everything is good and not really battling with himself too much, and everything looks really good on that car for the most part. So Eric Smith doing a fantastic job, just dominating the field with a 13-second lead, which is really impressive.
But the gap between Michael Lane and Ross Banfield is also as impressive, nearly another 12 to 13 seconds at that point as well. So really, Michael Lane and Eric Smith just kind of running their own races. At this point, they just have to worry about getting through the lap traffic, as they really don't have to battle with anyone, and they can take their time as well to get through those lap cars. So as long as they play it safe, I think those two guys are just going to have those top 2 steps of the podium locked down.
Yeah, and something I noticed here, Kelly, is actually Michael Lane did not have that great of a practice time, I guess, in comparison to, say, Eric Smith or Ross Banfield. He was actually over a second slower. Granted, it's just practice, but it says something about the driver to just be able to get, I guess, a good starting spot, and he was fortunate enough to have a good starting spot and just get clear of everybody behind him. He was able to just settle in and adapt pretty quickly. He's had a great race from there. It's just been, you know, maintaining what he can here, trying to... I'll fix that wind. Trying to keep up with Eric Smith at least the best as he can, try and lose as little as he can, and he's been doing a great job once he got clear of everybody behind him.
Yeah, and Mike Kelly still in front of Brandon Whitworth and, you know, Claude Belval, who's still trying to make up those positions that he lost, unfortunately, a few laps ago. And 3-car battle, still doing a great job. And I'm really liking these cars because they're always, you know, shaping up for a great battle. You know, these guys obviously know how to have a handle on these cars, and it's really cool to see all these drivers just keep on fighting it out. Even if they get a little bit too far off, they're able to run them down and always able to make sure that they're there for contention. I think that goes with the straightaways, and you get a little air of draft behind a car, and obviously seeing how close they are right here going through this final couple of corners, it's really closed the gap through those last couple laps.
Yeah, but now they're coming down to this fast right-hander. Again, it's not a place where you can try to make a pass, and Claude is the guy that knows that all too well, but he's still going to use that draft from Brandon to try to just close up that gap. But at the same time, if they worry about fighting each other, they're going to start to lose Mike Kelly, who's opened up a bit of a gap on of his own, almost about a second over Whitworth. But as you said, the draft of these cars, they draft quite well, but a little bit of a mistake from Whitworth allows Belval to get right up to him. Going to be right on the gearbox now, coming into the hangar straight, and this is going to be the place where Belval is going to be able to try to make a move. If he can get a good run off this corner, use the draft to his advantage, but it looks like actually Whitworth having a better run down the straightaway.
And as they come into SO, I believe it's called, so I'm looking at a track map, fancy me, Belval still just putting the pressure right now on Whitworth, and I think that's the thing to do. If you get up to somebody, the tires in the state that they are, even though some guys are saying some people just didn't stop at all in this race, I really think you should come in and get some tires. So with the tires as they are, I think I guess the thing to do is just put pressure until somebody makes a mistake. We've seen that already from a couple of drivers, Jake Fox being, I guess, the most notable, sending Claude Belval around. Just pressure somebody, make them make a mistake, go on by, take advantage of it. So I think that's what Claude Belval is going to have to do here with guys like Brandon Whitworth and Mike Kelly, especially once he gets up to Mike Kelly, and even Richard McClure even further ahead.
Yeah, and going off the adding pressure, we're seeing that a lot here today, and obviously with Claude Belval pressuring Brandon Whitworth into a little mistake right there and able to get to his gearbox. And, it's just something that you have to do at every single road course. If you're not seeing that you're catching them with your own racing, you got to make sure that you're keeping that pressure on and that they always see you in their rearview mirror, and you're getting bigger to them. And, just got to keep them always mirror checking, and then hopefully that just leads them to a mistake in a quick section like this one that happened a lap ago. So, you just got to make sure that you're always there. And 14 cars on the lead lap now.
Yeah, Belval getting right up to Whitworth once again, going down that back straightaway, but still not quite able to get enough speed to get around him. Oh, it almost carried a little bit too much speed into the corner and nearly rear-ended Whitworth. So that's going to create a bit more of a gap as he had to check up just a little bit more, a little bit of a wobble, but able to keep that car under control as they're still trying to chase after Mike Kelly. But Mike Kelly, he's starting to open up a gap and check out and really secure that 6th place position.
And they're getting through some lap traffic. This is going to be a big factor in these battles as well, guys. The lap traffic we saw, actually, I believe it was Scott Kukas a little further back, who really got him the way off into turn 1, but they got through it just fine, and it was no fault of Scott's. But the lap traffic is just going to be something they have to work with. There's a lot more cars, I feel like, on this track than a normal Formula race would have, so it's really going to be a big factor. We've got 29 cars to start up this race, and as Belval drives up to Kelly, got a pretty good run out of that last corner. They're going to have to start worrying about these lap cars, considering there are so many of them now. There's only 13 cars in the lead lap, and, Eric Smith is up there just driving past more of these guys. Most recent was Simon Thorns, next will be Robert Waddell, and even Jose Pabon on his list.
Yeah, and, just watching all these drivers just continue to, battle back and forth, with these two drivers right here for 7th position, and it's getting really close. Claude Belval now to the right side of Whitworth, trying to find a different way around, and he's going to fall back into line. I thought he had a little leeway into this right-hander, but still going to fall back. And I think this is just going along with the point where if you stay single file, you're not going to fall away from these cars in front of you, and that's not really what you want to do on a road course. We've already seen what happens if you do. You start to pull a 15-second gap on the person behind you. So just got to make sure that you're always there in contention. It's a little spread out between everybody except for 7th and 8th. I believe it's only just a matter of time before we start to see Claude Belval pass Whitworth and then start to pull away, because I think he is faster, and it's just really interesting to see all these drivers just battle back and forth.
Yeah, some great battling going on. We're going to keep an eye on Whitworth and Belval, because it looks like Belval is finally trying to set him up for this pass. But as mentioned, Copse, this first turn here is not the place to pass. And again, Whitworth's just getting the better run off of the corners. He's accelerating better onto these corners where you have that long straightaway, but Belval is just better at the sections of corners. Like when we watch through Maggots and Beckett's here, he's probably going to be able to close that gap up a little bit. And maybe now Claude's going to have to work this lap traffic that's in front of him to his advantage, because there's a number of cars in front of them now.
Yeah, he can certainly try and pin Whitworth maybe behind a lap car just at the right time that he gets to run through a corner. Maybe, of course, force Whitworth to take a slower corner, considering he's going to have less front downforce, and try to take advantage of that down a straightaway. He's just got to try and set things up perfectly. And so far, he's been doing a pretty good job of at least getting to Whitworth, but hasn't been able to make the pass, and that's the most difficult part. You can catch somebody, but passing them is a totally different story. We're seeing that in action here with these guys, as actually, I take my words back, Mike Kelly is putting on a show up here with Richard McClure. No, actually, that's Kevin O'Keefe, a lapped car.
Yeah, it's really hard to see what kind of different cars there are out there, but, trying to do our best. And, watching these cars for the first time, as Andrew was saying, these are really awesome just to watch, and I'm upset that I didn't see them earlier. And, these cars are really fun, it looks like, to drive, and I'm really loving all the battles that I'm seeing here with Claude Belval, Brandon Whitworth, and then soon to be Mike Kelly up in the mix, and now just getting around another lap car. That's Brandon Whitworth and Claude Belval going around them quickly and trying to get around in that first corner so they don't lose each other. But they are starting to catch Mike Kelly, and this will soon be a 3-car battle.
Well, as we talk and praise these cars so much, we have to give a quick shout out to the Lotus 79 community as well. If you're interested in these cars, these guys have a very tight-knit community and run a very interesting thing called the Classic Team Challenge, where drivers are split into teams from this era of racing, and then they have a championship based on official races. So it's kind of a league within official racing, and just a really unique thing that's within the iRacing community. So if you guys are enjoying watching this race, I'm sure those of drivers in the Lotus 79 community would be happy to take you on. And this car may not be up there in really the kind of popularity, but it's kind of almost, you'd consider it a bit of a cult classic, really, in iRacing.
Yeah, good racing isn't exactly a popularity contest. You can have a great race with just 5 guys sometimes. So I think this is actually a pretty cool looking car. Not to mention, it looks like racing it, like Trevin said, is just a blast. And like I said, I've had very limited experience where I just throw it around Canadian Tire. And in my time doing that, it is pretty fun. It's a great looking car. It's a great driving car as Belval continues to just get after Whitworth. I'm not sure if he can get by him with these tires the way they are. I believe some of these guys were saying in the chat the winners in the previous 2 splits pitted to win. They did make a pit stop, so I think that's maybe going to be the name of the game here. Follow what the previous winners did, try and do exactly what they did, and just, getting it. Who can argue with new tires, I guess what I'm trying to say, as they come up through Maggots and Beckett's.
Well, I'm sure the people who spun out in the first quarter will argue that cold tires are not the best. But obviously, seeing right now, watching these lap times, they're not really falling off as much as I said, but they sure are falling off, going from 7.21 to a 6.23. So, these times are jumping up and down, and it just could be because these cars are running different lines. But, tire wear is always such a big factor with racing, and, this is awesome to see that these drivers have something to, base themselves off of with splits before them, and just take notes from what they saw earlier and apply them to how they're going to race right now.
Well, there's another battle going on this racetrack. It's a little bit behind Whitworth and Belval, and that's Lonnie Fitch and Rory Collins battling for 9th place. Both those drivers started in 9th and 10th, but they're both trying to, Rory's trying to improve his position 1 spot, and Lonnie's trying to keep himself in that position to hold off 9th place and get that little bit of extra points. But Rory's been holding off very close to him. And at this moment, though, there's a bit of a gap and that Rory can't quite close to be able to make the move.
Yeah, I've been watching the times on these two, Lonnie Fitch and Rory Collins, just a little bit, and honestly, a bunch of kudos to these guys. They're staying in the top 10 so far. They're not having any blistering pace or anything like that. They're not having a super fast race, but they were doing exactly what they need to do, just running a conservative race, doing what they can, and just trying to make it from flag to flag, and they're doing a great job so far. As we could see their paths cross here very soon. Lonnie Fitch has been slowing down just a little bit, getting into the, I guess, the range of Rory Collins. If he wants to make a move, he probably can down here into Cox. But either way, Rory Collins just trying to make another pass, trying to get to ninth place. And we've been, like I said, been watching these guys on timing and scoring just slowly kind of trickling into the top 10 as some of these guys were taken out. And again, just big time kudos to these guys just doing what they have to do.
Yeah, and I believe Roy Collins really caught Lonnie Finch when Lonnie went off the racetrack in turn number 1, and we talk about that high-speed section, and he went off. I believe it was a couple laps ago, and we've seen a lot of drivers use that runoff space, but he went off so much, and I believe that's just really what allowed Roy to catch up to him, and continue to pressure on for this lead. So maybe if Roy continues to pressure him, we're going to see another runoff like we've seen with him and like we've seen with previous drivers.
Well, a quick look at the front of the field. Eric Smith, he's remaining with a very solid lead, 23.5 seconds last time at the line. Michael Lane, though, he's starting to lose a bit of ground to Ross Banfield. Ross Banfield has been able to close that gap to within 8 seconds, but it's going to have to wonder if maybe Banfield's going to start creeping up on him. He just got to slowly turn these laps a little bit faster, and that last time around, Banfield was almost a second faster on his lap, so if in a shorter period of time, if Lane doesn't sort his problems out, Banfield might be able to actually catch up to him. And we didn't think that was going to happen. We thought these top 3 had already been sorted and settled, but Banfield is quietly catching up to him.
That he is, and that was actually a big close call. I'm not sure if we were watching Banfield there on the camera or not, but Banfield came right up on Simon Thorns, and Thorns was just a little bit slower, and that was almost a collision there. He gets by him now, going off into, I believe that's Brooklands, but either way, Banfield is starting to make up some time, like you're mentioning there, Kelly, and, we still got over half the race to go. We're only on lap 27, coming to 28 of 64, so there's still plenty of time for Ross to make up that time, and quite honestly, I think if he keeps chipping away like he is now, just making up what he can here and there, he has a really good chance of doing so. I mean, right there, Michael Lane lost another 1.5 seconds, I believe, to Eric Smith. Meanwhile, Banfield still loses some time, but is still just moving closer and closer. Earlier on, we were talking about him being 13 seconds back of Michael Lane. Now it's only about a 9-second gap here, Trevin.
Yeah, and this could just go along with, making sure that you're fluent, you're consistent, you're not running the track too hard. And, this is what I love about road racing is, anything can happen. You can run your race for 63 laps and it's just perfect. You're dominating, but it only takes one corner to screw your whole entire race up. So, I'm sure Ross Banfield is just hanging in there waiting to see if that does happen, if he does wear those tires a little bit too much and he goes in the corner too hot, and it just ends up being a terrible, terrible corner for him, and he's able to make up a whole bunch of time. But as you said, he is 9 seconds behind him now, so I'm sure there's a little bit of hope for him.
Well, I think we need to stop talking about tire wear, because not this previous lap that Eric just completed, but the lap before, he just ran the fastest lap of the race with a 1:28.6, and that's a full second faster than the second fastest lap, which is actually Ross Banfield. He's running the second fastest with a 1:29.4 for his fastest lap. So Eric Smith still flying, even if those tires may not be perfect anymore.
Yeah, and of course, these guys, easily could have saved. I think with the pace that Eric Smith has been showing here today, he easily could have just, run maybe half strength there for the first few laps and might still have some more tires left than most of these guys. So, I mean, quite honestly, Michael Lane could be doing the same thing. Maybe he understands that he's got this huge gap back to Ross Banfield, can, pretty much, I guess, afford to lose a few seconds and just try and save some tires, try and cool them back down just a little bit, because obviously even with these cold temperatures and cold tires taking a while to heat up, cooling your tires down just a little bit so they aren't just hot and gummy is going to help. So really anything could be going on here with this 62 car of Michael Lane, but it is certainly to keep something to keep our minds on as he gets by a lapped car there. That is Eddie Hawks. So either way, these guys obviously have their mindset on something, and Michael Lane is either just losing time outright or maybe trying to save tires, but Eric Smith, like you said there, Kelly, is just running a blistering pace.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what he's doing. you know, he's just running his race, and he knows that he has a sizable gap on him, and he's just, you know, continuing to save those tires, maybe if he needs them in the end. And you know, that's just what you got to do on road races. You know you're distant, you know how far you're back from him, and you just start saying to yourself, all right, let's start saving some tires. Let's make sure that we're there for the end in case we don't make a tire stop, and just continue to run our race.
Well, Eric Smith continues the lead, and that lead has grown to 34 seconds, so he is just taking off from everyone else. But at this moment, we're going to take a step aside for a short break, but we will be going LSRTV nonstop, so you're not going to miss a moment of the action. You're watching the Atlantic Major Series Classic British Grand Prix on LSRTV.
Prix. I'm driving the number 20 JGR Toyota Xfinity car this weekend. Really great opportunity here at New Hampshire at my home track. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been on iRacing, practicing a little bit here and there with the modified and the NASCAR Xfinity car, so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great tool for me to kind of get used to that stock car body again and be prepared for the race today. Well, yeah, it's a mile long, so the draft kind of plays into effect here with the modifieds. Punches a big hole in the air, and we run restrictor plates, so it makes a big difference. Just really fast, and it's our Daytona, so that's what's great about it, and we have a fast car for tomorrow. I think the biggest thing is they're heavier cars. The tire's a lot different, and the way you go about setting them up is a lot different. They use all 4 tires more than a modified, where we typically drive off the right rear, you know, so. Well, actually, it's funny. I raced NASCAR race in 2003 before iRacing came about. And then when iRacing came about, my friend Kevin Iannarelli, who works at iRacing, kind of told me, hey man, you need to switch over to this. And when I did, I was like, oh my God, this is like real life. So I started using it as a tool of mine to really prepare for modified races, whether it was Stafford or Thompson or Loudon, Bristol. And then obviously the Xfinity Series last year, going to road courses, trying to get laps, and use it as a tool that can get me as prepared as I could be without actually doing it. So it's been great.
We are back to the Atlantic Major Series Classic British Grand Prix, where our race leader Eric Smith has pulled into the pits to take some fresh tires. So apparently he's not going to go the full race distance on these tires. He's going to only go half and half. And wondering where he's going to pull out onto the racetrack at this moment. Going to take a quick look at timing. He is going to come out in, I guess, third place at the moment. Or sorry, no, second place he's going to remain. So only Michael Lane is going to get around him. Kevin Hill is still going to be about 12 seconds behind. So just to show how far Eric Smith has been ahead of everyone, that only one driver was able to pass him in that entire 30 seconds he was down pit road.
Yeah, and on top of that, Ross Banfield came in, so there was 3 more seconds for him to work with there. But as Banfield exits the pits there, I think that was a great call from Eric Smith. He's so far ahead, he only loses, like you said, 1 position. So either he can drive up to Michael Lane, or if Michael Lane pits, he'll get that spot right back. And I think you can almost, I won't say for sure, but almost pencil that 32 in as the winner.
Yeah, and you know, he's just been so dominant this whole entire race, lap after lap, and I'm sure that he knows that he could pit and continue to dominate once he gets those new fresher tires. Obviously has to wait for them to heat up a little bit, but you know, he's done such a great job, and I just love watching this and love watching how he's able to run this race and run himself and not against all the other drivers out here and just continue to dominate. Now he has 1 car in front of him, obviously, Michael Lane. I'm starting to wonder if he's going to pit or not, but it'd be interesting to see what this driver does, obviously knowing that he has a fresh set of tires right behind him coming at him.
Well, first to get to him, he's got to get around some line of traffic. That's Terry Wellman in front of him at the moment. That is not quite Michael Lane. Michael Lane's still 8 seconds ahead of him, but I'm sure we're going to see that time going down. But a big checkup for Eric Smith's going to lose him a lot of time. So he's struggling to get past Wellman, and Wellman's just not making it easy for Eric Smith at the moment. And just behind him now, here comes Jake Fox. But Jake Fox is also a lap down after, I believe, he pitted earlier as well, but he pitted mainly for damage. So Jake Fox is going to be still not really in this fight for the race lead, and hopefully won't cause too much problems for Eric Smith. But just dealing with Terry Wellman has cost Eric Smith about 2 seconds on the racetrack.
And looking back through the field, another battle that we haven't really talked about in a while, I'd say Lonnie Fitch and Rory Collins actually totally just clotheslined that idea. Rory Collins comes into the pit lane, so I guess that's a good catch, but also unfortunate for my talking point. But Lonnie Fitch going to continue on, running up through Maggots and Beckett's, and Rory Collins going to come into the pit lane. So the 35 in on lap 34. I think seeing these guys come in is going to draw some more cars in.
Michael
Lane comes to the pit lane, and pun intended.
Great pun. I love puns during race broadcasts, but you know, obviously taking notes from previous races and you know, knowing that tires are obviously what brought a winner to the winner circle. You know, these guys are probably just want to audible their decision on what they want to do, and you know, taking tires and making sure that they're able to make it to the end. So we'll see where he cycles out. Eric Smith, I believe, a little bit further behind or ahead. I can't really tell where he's on track, but I'm sure he's going to take back that position.
Yeah, so Eric Smith going to take over the race lead once again, and we're going to see how long that gap, or how big that gap's going to be. At the moment, over Kevin Hill, he's about 9 seconds, but as mentioned, Kevin hasn't pit. Neither has Brandon Whitworth. So out of our top 3, really only one driver has pit. So watch for maybe Kevin Hill or Whitworth to come down pit road maybe this time around.
I believe Whitworth just got a spot over, I want to say it was McClure who might have come in and pit. So some more cars coming in. It's hard to keep track, really. I must side with Trevin there, but it's really fun to watch this, I guess, pit cycle come to fruition. And currently, I would bet on Kevin Hill coming in. The other one might actually get some.
You know, track position obviously very important for a road race, and you know, we see that how sizable these gaps can get with 9 seconds back to second. So you know, it could increase, and you know, obviously just track position is so important.
Well, speaking of track position, a driver that has gained a ton of that is Brandon Whitworth. He started in 15th, and as of this moment, he's currently running in our last podium spot in 3rd place. So he is our biggest mover of the race, I believe, at this moment, and really just an impressive drive to be able to come up from the back of pretty much the back of the field like that, and really start running lap times in the race that have been faster than the practice times he's been running. So Whitworth adapted to what's been happening, just kind of studied the drivers he's been following, and just kind of improved his own racing line.
Yeah, and Whitworth comes in 7th in the standings, not too far behind Andy Banfield, so this is a good points opportunity for him. I think he's another one, as I think that might have been, was that? No, it was not Kevin Hill, sorry. So I think Brandon Whitworth is another one of these guys that can stay out for a little while longer, if not for the entire race, try and get some track position, try and wait on something to happen. Obviously, we're not going to get a caution, so actually, if you're committing to it, you have to commit to it fully. But really, it really could work out for Whitworth. He has 9 seconds back to Michael Lane, who actually lost time over this pit cycle to Eric Smith. He's now a few more seconds back of that 32 than he was when he pit. So, yeah, I would honestly bet on the 377 and 12 cars of Whitworth and Hill, respectively, possibly trying this strategy to just stay out and try and hang on to these spots. I think, at least for Whitworth, it's a great gain if he can. I mean, like you mentioned, Kelly, he started 15th, so it's a great gain either way. If he still loses a few of these spots, I think he's got a pretty good opportunity here to just stay out and run it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, watching the point standings continue to, you know, watching the point standings continue to, you know, be a factor into this. You know, Mike Kelly, obviously the points leader, and watching all these drivers go in front of him, I'm sure he's not liking the likes of Brandon Whitworth, Claude Belval, all in front of him, and, you know, he just wants to make sure that he's able to keep this point standing at the end of this race.
Well, we're a little late on this because of the pit cycles, but we're going to take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with official sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and many, many more. Well, we've been talking about him quite a bit. Eric Smith is currently holding on to that race lead, and he's got an iron grip around it. Kevin Hill's been sitting in 2nd. Brandon Whitworth actually just came down pit road from 3rd. Michael Lane in 4th. Claude Belval also coming down pit lane in 5th. Ross Banfield runs at the moment in 6th. Richard McClure 7th. Mike Kelly is 8th. Lonnie Fitch sitting in 9th. And our last, who's also our last car on the lead lap, and our first car a lap down, is Jake Fox in 10th.
And in 11th currently is Rory Collins, 1 lap down. Then 12th is Jose Pabon. Simon Thorns in 13th. 14th goes to Brian Barney. Joshua Kanata rounds out your top 15. On back to 16th position is Robert Waddell. Then Kevin O'Keefe in 17th. And Banfield currently in 18th. Jason Wallet in 19th. And Terry Wellman rounds out your top 20 at 2 laps down.
21st, we'll go to Scott Kukas, Ivo and Andriano. We'll go to P22. P23, Eddie Hawks. Jonathan Diggs, P24. 25th, we'll go to Rob Powers. Thomas Peterson will be P26. And last car on the track right now, all these other cars have pitted or taken their cars behind the wall. That's Eric Klein, Carl Burke, and James Doan.
Well, that's been a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. Well, we saw a couple other drivers come down pit road while we started that Midway Race Break. The really notable one was definitely Brandon Whitworth, who's pitted from P3, is now into P5 at the moment. Ross Banfield was able to get around him, as well as Michael Lane, and Michael Lane still trying to catch up to Kevin Hill, who is still 11 seconds back and still has not pitted. So you got to wonder, is Kevin Hill trying to maybe go for fresher tires at the end, or is he going to try to stretch this thing all the way to the end?
Again, I kind of have to lean at this point to, I guess, running this out. I think at this point, you're 7 laps past where the leader pit, which was Eric Smith at lap 32. You're 7 laps past that, now coming around to 8 laps past that. You've made your bet at this point. You got to lie in it. You've just got to go ahead. You've got 30 seconds on back, no, 20 seconds, sorry, on back to Michael Lane, and even more back to Banfield. And of course, as I say something, he comes in just to defy me. So Kevin Hill coming into pit, really did not see that coming at this point, honestly, guys.
No, I did not see that at all. I was about to completely agree with you, but obviously we both stand corrected, and seeing it come down pit lane, this is a really late stop. Maybe he just wants something for the end of this race, knowing that tires are beneficial, knowing from those past races. So we'll see where he pulls out. Michael Lane passing him right now. Ross Banfield currently in the final section of this track, coming around to the front stretch. So Michael Lane might cycle out behind him, which I'm thinking is going to be no, he is out of pit lane.
Yeah, so Kevin Hill is still going to hold on to third place over Ross Banfield, but at the same time, he's got to get those tires up to temperature while Banfield's been running for a few laps on these tires. So Banfield might be able to close that gap up just a little bit more, but at the moment, these next few laps for Banfield are going to be absolutely crucial. He's got to be just flawless to be able to close up this gap that's currently sitting between those two at about 2 seconds.
Kelly, I think that goes back to the whole you can catch him, but passing him is another story. I don't think Banfield has what he's going to need to be able to go up there and just outright pass a 12 car of Hill. Kevin's going to have much better tires once they come up to temperature. Of course, like you mentioned, Ross is going to have that advantage once before those tires get up to temperature. So for 3 or 4 laps, he's going to have that advantage to run up there and start making up time, but he's also got to get by him. And I think by the time he gets there, those tires in the 12 car will be mostly up to temperature. And at that point, newer tire versus older tire is just going to completely outrule the situation as these guys go by a lap car. I believe that was Simon Thorne's.
Yeah, and watching this battle continue to press on, Kevin Hill still trying to get in front of Ross Banfield. Ross trying to put that pressure on, coming down towards that front stretch area. And, it's really interesting to see how these guys are running this track. Like how they are entering each corner different from what the car in front of them are doing and continue to put pressure on. We'll see how this works out for Ross Banfield against Kevin Hill. Kevin with obviously the fresher tire, so able to pull away a little bit more better. But obviously, big slip up for Kevin Hill right there, and Ross Banfield able to pull a sizable closure on him.
Yeah, and that's just the tire temperature coming into play there, because as we mentioned, it's about 3 or 4 laps to get these things fully up to heat, and that's a long time for Kevin Hill to be trying to hold off Ross Banfield, so he may have fresher tires later on in the race, but at this moment, it's going to be difficult for him to hold off Ross Banfield. These tires are pretty much coming into that optimal temperature range right around now, so going to have to keep an eye on this battle because it's going to shape up to be an interesting one. At least I'm hoping it will be.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting either way, but I have to lean in favor of that 12 car. I think he's got the better tires. I do have to comment real quick, though. I just looked up at my timing and scoring, and I mentioned it a little while ago. Eric Smith was able to put just about 10 seconds on Michael Lane through that entire, round of pit stops. I don't know how in the world he did it, but he is now 37, almost 38 seconds ahead. I'm just in awe. Quite honestly, I'm just in awe.
Knowing that he has fresher tires, I'm sure that he's running a little bit harder because he has 22 laps to go right now. So, just continuing to press on and making sure that he's in front.
I think if Eric Smith had enough time, he might be able to lap this entire field, but I don't think this race is going to be quite long enough for him to do that at this moment. But he's still probably going to put another couple drivers down at the moment because Claude Belval actually just got lapped, I believe. Actually, no, he's getting close to being lapped. Just a few seconds ahead of Eric Smith at the moment. So Claude Belval currently running 9th, so that would leave just 8 cars left on the lead lap, and he might even also have time to be able to catch up to Lonnie Fitch. So Eric Smith just running an absolutely fantastic race.
And that is actually really bad for Claude Belval. We were talking about him being in the top 5 earlier on in the race. We must have missed something that happened to him. Either way, he's trying to get back at it. Currently, like you mentioned there, Kelly, in the 9th position, but also in this little bit of a gaggle. I guess not really even a gaggle, but Eric Smith is going to be going by him here in a moment. Thomas Peterson actually comes in a decent position in the point standings. He comes in 3rd. And, well, I don't really see Joshua Kanata up in the front. I don't know if he's even in the race, but this is certainly not going to benefit the driver of the 9 car too much. But at the same time, I mean, I'm looking behind him, and even Carl Burke, Andy Banfield, not having good days. The best day out of anybody in the top 7 of the standings is going to be Brandon Whitworth, because even Mike Kelly is... Well, actually, he's actually ahead of Brandon Whitworth, so I take that back. But either way, it's really an off day for some of these guys in the top 10. I think we're going to see a big shakeup in standings before we go to our next event here for the majors.
Yeah, and while you were talking, Lonnie Finch got a little bit loose inside that chicane section towards the back half of the track and got off track a little bit, got a little sideways, and allowed Claude Belval catch up a little bit, so we'll see what the gap is now. It's about looks to be a 3 to 4 second gap, so Finn has a lot of time to make up if he wants to continue to press back from Claude Belval.
Yeah, and as we took our eyes away from that battle between Banfield and Hill, Banfield got a little bit caught up behind some lap traffic and lost a lot of ground to Kevin Hill, so Kevin Hill now will have that time to really heat up his tires and be able to get himself into a better position, as he now sits about 1.5 seconds ahead of Ross Banfield. Banfield's still sitting about 2.5 seconds ahead of McClure at this moment, so it's wasn't the worst opportunity for Banfield, and surprisingly, he's actually started to close up that gap already.
Yeah, Banfield is handling this situation of, new versus old tires pretty well. He's actually keeping right with Kevin Hill for the most part. Looks like about 1.5 seconds back, not too bad. And earlier you were mentioning that he was about 2 seconds back, so he's closed up just a little bit. I'm not sure he's necessarily going to get to him without mistakes out of that 12 car, but we still have well, I shouldn't say at least, we still have 21 laps actually that time by, for these guys to make a mistake. So it can definitely happen. Even a lap car just getting in the way throughout a corner, taking some downforce off of that 12 car, could really impact this battle and allow Ross Banfield to catch right up. So anything can still happen. However, Banfield is still a little ways back. He is making up time. It's still going to be very, very tough to actually get up there and pass somebody on old tires.
Yeah, and you just got to continue to see what parts of the track that you're better at than them and catch up that way, and then make sure that their mirror is full of you and continue to press on. And it's just insane to see all these drivers just continue to catch up after they've been down so many seconds, and that's really what I'm starting to like about these cars. Not once you get further back, you're not out for the count. You just got to run your race, and then you're right back in it.
Well, Banfield runs a little bit wide through that final sector, but he's still trying to chase down Kevin Hill as much as possible. He's still got a number of laps to go. I think we're going to be coming within 20 laps as they come across the line here. Eric Smith already on the back straightaway at this moment, still he's starting to catch up to a bit of a gap or a bit of a cluster of lap down cars, and in that cluster is Claude Belval, as well as Lonnie Fitch, who's kind of leading that little pack, as Claude is just trying to cut through those guys to be able to catch up to Lonnie to go for the race position before Eric Smith starts weaving his way through. And as I say that, Eric Smith catches up to this group, and he's now trying to pick his way through.
Yeah, Eric Smith has his work cut out for him. He's going to have to get by at least 3 cars there, as Claude almost made contact with, that was Robert Waddell, and Eric Smith gets by him now. So I mean, these cars are going to start getting in the way more and more. As he gets up to faster cars, it's going to be tougher to pass. So we'll see how Eric Smith handles this. He's now got almost 40 seconds over Michael Lane. Although this, I guess, leak of time, I guess you could call it, from Michael Lane up to Eric Smith is starting to slow down. It's not quite as drastic as it was before. So I think Michael Lane is starting to find his way around this track. We do have a lot more rubber, of course, on the track than when we started. So that could be helping him settle in, get into a line, get into a rhythm once more. Back to the battle we've been focusing on for a little while. Ross Banfield still testing those track limits, trying to catch up to Kevin Hill.
and he is definitely catching him. The question is, how long is it going to take for him to do so, because he can see him right in that mirror, and you know, just a few more laps to go, and you know, it's just really awesome to see all these drivers continue to battle out and about in this racetrack. Still just looking around, seeing what other battles we have going on, but right now Ross Banfield and Kevin Hill still the closest ones. Now Ross Banfield, oh, that's not him. I was clicking on the wrong person. My apologies, but I believe that he was about to make a pass, but that was a lap car.
Yeah, now they've got a lap car in between them, and that is the lap car of Jose Pabon. So Banfield trying to see if he can get around him down this hangar straight. Pabon going to thankfully lift off just a little bit, allow him by, and still a small gap between Kevin Hill and Ross Banfield. At this moment, it's currently sitting at about 0.9 seconds, and Banfield's slowly closing it up.
And if Banfield can start getting closer and closer up to Kevin Hill, almost, I guess, into a DRS range, even though these cars don't have DRS, he can start using the toe off of Kevin Hill down the straightaways to try and catch up that way as well. So he might be able to start inching closer and closer a little bit quicker now that he's up there and can start getting that toe down the straightaways, guys. We might have a battle here shaping up pretty soon for third position, and this could even draw Richard McClure into the fray. McClure is not that far back.
Yeah, and, you know, just continuing to watch this battle, you know, we talk a lot about if you battle against each other, it's just going to catch the drivers up behind you and, you know, bring a better gap to what you were before with Michael Lane. But at this point, you know, with this gap that you're seeing right here between Michael Lane and Kevin Hill, I don't think that there's enough time. I talk a lot about, you know, catching back up, but that's with about 9 seconds. With 20 seconds that we're seeing right here, I just don't think that less than 20 laps is a good enough time for these drivers to continue. And, you know, especially with no cautions here. And, you know, that's the thing with road racing that you got to keep in mind. It's not going to be any sort of caution happening. So, you know, just make sure that you're always up in a battle and continuing to battle for position.
And as soon as Kevin Hill and Ross Banfield start going side by side, we have to shift the focus to Richard McClure, because that car is going to suddenly start catching up to them as they battle out. They're going to be going a lot slower. So McClure sitting about 2 seconds back from Banfield at the moment. I think that's what the live timing is saying, at 2.5 seconds. He had a little bit of trouble getting around Jose Pabon on himself, but I think that gap will disappear very quickly as the second Banfield catches, and I think Banfield will catch him in the next few laps here. They were only about 0.6 seconds apart last time around. They're still sitting about 0.7, so I think Kevin Hill's currently running a bit of a faster lap, but there was about a 0.7 of a second difference between Hill and Banfield on that last lap.
And something that's going to help is that they actually go by, I believe that was Rory Collins getting lapped there. Something that's going to help Richard McClure once they start battling is once they slow down far enough to get into that kind of toe range that I was just mentioning with Banfield trying to catch up to Kevin Hill. That's even a bigger hole that those cars are punching in the air, and I can't believe I'm talking about that with loaded 79s at Silverstone, but quite honestly, it could help him down these straights. This is a very fast track, a lot of fast straights, so if he can start getting a toe off those guys down the straightaways, he can start catching up that way as well, just like I was talking about with Banfield catching up to Kevin Hill. Once they get side by side, it's going to be even easier, like Kelly was mentioning, to catch up to these guys.
Yeah, and continuing to watch how many cars are on the lead lap, it has dwindled down to 7 cars. So Eric Smith continuing to put on a clinic while Ross Banfield continuing trying to catch up to Kevin Hill through the S's they go, or through the chicane. And Richard McClure still trying to get up to the back bumper of Ross Banfield as well. So really interesting fights going on right now throughout this whole entire track of Silverstone. It's really awesome to see these drivers just continue to fight left and right.
Yeah, Kevin Hill now going to get caught up to some lap traffic as they go through this final sector on the racetrack, and that's going to allow Ross Banfield to get a little bit closer. Banfield been running a bit of a faster lap this time around, which was what he needed after running losing some ground to Kevin Hill last time around. This time at the line, going to see where they stand, and at the moment it's going to be a 0.7 of a second gap. And that time around, I believe Banfield was faster by 0.2 of a second. So it's still fighting quite hard. And as they're doing this, they are pulling away from Richard McClure just a little bit. McClure is now actually fallen back to about 3 1/4 seconds behind Banfield.
Yeah, it seems like McClure's car is starting to fall off. Of course, he's working through this lap traffic, and he might just not be quite as experienced doing that. I don't know. So it's slowing him down a little bit. Either way, these two are running very fast to keep up with each other, quite honestly. Banfield has really picked up the pace to keep up with Kevin Hill. Kevin Hill's got a lot newer tires. If you remember back to when he pitted, he was at least 7 laps later than Eric Smith. He might have been at least 5 laps later than Ross Banfield. So big tire difference there. You know, even just 1 lap sometimes is enough to slow a car down. So we'll see how the tires fare. I think Ross Banfield's doing a great job of managing his tire wear so far, but also running these hard laps to keep up with somebody is going to, you know, affect that. So we'll see how they do. Ross Banfield doing a good job, like I keep saying, and he's pretty much on his gearbox now, actually, through Brooklands.
Yeah, continuing to press on, and you know, we're seeing him fight so hard, and that could just lead to a mistake in himself, trying to keep the pressure on Kevin Hill. You know, just pushing every single corner to its limits, and you know, eventually it's just gonna end up upside down for Ross Banfield, I feel. And you know, he just has to make sure that he's always in that perfect set of where he can run, and you know, make sure that he's not going to bite it too hard. And he's just right there with Kevin Hill, keeping his mirror full right now. So you know, as much as he is putting the pressure on Kevin Hill, he's also putting pressure on himself to continue to put pressure on Kevin Hill.
Well, now as they go down the hangar straight, he's going to be able to start catching a bit of that draft, and it's not the biggest hole in the air these cars punch, because a lot of the downforce is generated underneath the car, but it's still been a bit of a noticeable amount. And now watching Banfield, he still is closing up that gap, getting much closer to Kevin Hill at this moment, and Richard McClure just kind of sitting a few seconds back, hoping those guys are going to go side by side and really battle hard for a number of laps, because he has lost quite a bit of ground to them. And for him to have any chance of maybe getting a podium position, he needs these guys to battle hard.
Yeah, he really does. McClure has been kind of just in the wake of everything so far today. He was in a battle earlier on in the race when things got going, started to fall back, and was really just, you know, once Mike Kelly got into the fray, was just in kind of the background, wasn't really one of the big drivers after a while in some of those battles. And now we see that same thing perpetuating here. Richard McClure is trying to catch up to these guys, trying to just sit in the background a little bit, and so far it's working for him, but he's got to make up some more time. He's lost some time actually in these last few laps to Ross Banfield, and he needs to get closer. He needs to be able to get that toe in case something happens in front of him to try and take advantage of it. He can't sit this far back, so I don't know if he's, you know, I don't know how hard he's running, but he definitely needs to run harder if he wants to get that podium like Kelly mentioned.
Yeah, and Ross Banfield, I'm sure he's just waiting for the perfect time that he sees the opportunity fit to get around Kevin Hill, because he still has a lot of time left here, a little bit over 14 minutes still left in this race, if my math is correct. So, you know, Ross Banfield's just watching and waiting to make his move, and if he continues to put pressure on, he's hoping that Kevin Hill will go into a corner too hot and end up you know, around or into the wall. And he's hoping that lap traffic also slows Kevin Hill up to continue to solidify that he is right there on his gearbox and continue to put pressure on.
Yeah, and what he's doing now is just trying to see if he can change up his line a little bit to really catch up to Kevin Hill, and that is what he does seem to be getting a little bit closer as we go through these last few corners in this last section. But at the same time, it's not quite working out for him. He needs to get that fast exit off of either this final corner or off the final corner before the hanger straight to be able to get a good run on him. And I would really want to prefer the hanger straight, because not only is it a little bit longer, it's just a little bit easier in the next corner to try to make a pass instead of going through cops side by side, where it's definitely, it would be a much riskier and much more dangerous pass.
That's exactly right, and that's something I want to talk about, actually. These guys have been running here for now over 50 laps. They've got a good idea of where a good passing zone is or isn't as we come on, I believe, to the hanger straight. And there's not much. There is not much here at Silverstone, just looking at a track map. there's a lot of fast corners, and there's really only Brooklands and Lutfield that are super slow corners. Comps is not a good idea. If you're going to make a pass, it has to be right at the end of the lap, pretty much down. Like I said, in Brooklands and Lutfield, there's not much of anywhere to pass on this course. So if Banfield's going to make a pass, he has to figure out where he wants to do it. He has to really set Kevin Hill up for a couple of different laps, figure out where he can and can't do something, and now we're coming into one of the only passing opportunities on the track.
You know, I think that coming out of the hangar straight and into Stowe would be a good passing zone as well. But, you know, we've seen a lot of passes happen in Brooklyn and Luffield, as you said. So I agree with that, and I say there are probably more passing spots all around this track. But, you know, for the most part, we're seeing passes happen right here. And, you know, we're seeing what they have to make do with these turns and this kind of car at this track, which is amazing. Again, I just can't praise this enough. I'm loving every single action. I hope you guys are at home too. But Ross Banfield still just trying to find a different place, and I'm really starting to love how he's running different lines around this track and trying to catch up in different places where Kevin Hill is slow.
Yeah, he's been able to get up right up to the wing of Kevin Hill, but just isn't quite making the moves. He's kind of testing the grounds, or testing the waters really, seeing where he can try to make these passes. And as we're mentioning, we've seen a lot of passes going to the last section. I think where we may see him do it is a lot of other drivers, which is coming up here when we come into Abbey. We see a lot of drivers will get up alongside, try to take the outside line through Abbey, and then when they go into towards Bridge, they'll try to set themselves up so they'll be on the inside going into Bridge, so they get that preferred line into this slow sector. And we'll see if maybe he's going to try to make a move to the inside. He was shading for it. He definitely looked like he thought about it. And we'll have to see. Maybe he's just kind of seeing if maybe next time around, just kind of experimenting for next lap, they can maybe make a move there.
Yeah, I'm watching Banfield's lines basically react to what Kevin Hill is doing, and I'm noticing almost on cue with us talking about Banfield needing to get a better exit out of the corners, he's taking a wider entry, trying to get a better straight shot out of each of these corners. It's not working so far, but he's at least improving, and it's looking like if he can keep working on that and just honing that skill in, he might have a chance to do something here pretty soon down, say, the hangar straight. We've been talking about it for a while. If he can get a good launch out of, I believe it's Beckett's, and Chapel Curve, he's going to have a pretty good chance to try and get up there next to Kevin Hill. I think, Abbey is a good chance for him to do it as well. I think that was a great call there by Kelly.
Coming out of Chapel Curve and into Hangar Straight and into Stowe, we'll see how he sets him up going into this corner. He's still there, and coming 10 laps to go this time by and into Vale right now. And you know, this is just a really fun track to watch all these drivers continue to battle on and on and on. And, you know, I just think this is a great car track combo. We're seeing everybody push their cars to the limit here coming into Abbey right now. And, you know, it's just really great. And into this final section.
He's got the run. He's going to make the move to the inside through Bridge. They are side by side going into this final slow sector, and a big slide from Kevin Hill. Sorry. Kevin Hill goes around, and he's going to lose a ton of ground in multiple positions. He struggles to get that car back on track, but somehow kept it off of Ross Banfield. Ross Banfield's going to take third place. Richard McClure, he's going to move up into fourth. And Kevin Hill, he's going to get dropped all the way back into fifth after that spin.
And, yeah, definitely we need to go back and get Dale Jr. for that one. But Ross Banfield just lost a bunch of time in that whole ordeal as well. And Richard McClure is basically on that number 19 now. So that slowed the both of them down. Of course, Kevin Hill, you know, got the short end of the stick there. He went all the way around and really took a moment to get back going. But really, the big deal there is that Richard McClure made up a ton of time. As you see the replay here on Ross Banfield, this battle really changes, and Banfield's still in the battle for third, but now it goes to Richard McClure on the advancing side with Ross Banfield trying to defend. And again, just a really terrible mistake there. Kevin Hill just went around. He just got sideways.
Yeah, and, you know, just fighting so hard and trying to get out of the you know, corner so quickly and making sure that you're defending positions left and right. It's going to get a little bit hairy into some corners. So, you know, you go on that inside line, and you try to get the power down, and then your car just wants to step out after, you know, using your tires for so many laps, and that's just the result of what happened. Unfortunately, Kevin Hill now back to 5th place, right behind Richard McClure. But now Richard McClure right on the gearbox of Ross Banfield coming to the front straightaway.
Yeah, now that McClure is kind of in that zone for the toe and really into that kind of area where once you get behind another driver, your focus kind of changes, and somehow you just find yourself running faster laps as you compare yourself to that other driver and change up your line a little bit now. And we've seen Ross Banfield over the course of the race, he's run faster laps than McClure, but now that McClure is up towards Banfield, he's gone a little bit faster, but a little bit of mistake there through Maggots and Beckett's, and that's going to open up a bit of a gap for Banfield. So McClure's got to recover here if he wants to try to hope for maybe just a little bit of a draft off of Banfield.
Yeah, McClure's really going to have to do something here. This is right at the end of the race. These tires are pretty worn, and I mean, really, he hasn't been battling with Banfield for the last little while, so he has to pretty much take a crash course in how to pass Banfield. It's not going to be very easy. Ross Banfield was on the attack of Kevin Hill for so long, and Banfield actually getting very sideways there. I believe that was through Club, and now down towards Abbey. That was a big slide, and that's really going to open the door here as we get down towards Brooklands and Lutfield for McClure to make a move.
And this is exactly where we saw Banfield make his move last time, as we have a smoking car off to the left. Oh, 2. But they are off the track, thankfully, so this will not cause a problem for Banfield or McClure at all. But McClure probably, a little slide sideways off the rumble strip right there for Banfield, but McClure able to close, and I don't think that McClure wanted to make a little pass with all those cars right there, but he has the next lap to do it, and he has a few laps to go to make something happen.
We may have to go take a look back at what was going on with those smoking cars. One of those was Lonnie Fitch. I couldn't quite catch who the other one was, but that definitely
Robert Waddell.
Yeah, Robert Waddell, who definitely threw a bit of an interesting mix into these into this battle, because they didn't really want to try to make a move, because you never know where the smoke is really coming from. And yes, those cars were off the track, but with the smoke kind of pouring across the track, they had no idea where those cars were, and that forced McClure to kind of check up and not try to make a move on Banfield and just kind of play it safe.
So as you watch the replay of that incident there with Lonnie Fitch and Robert Waddell, it looks like Ivo Andreini, just took Abbey a little bit wide, and I think Lonnie Fitch was expecting him to take a bit of a more shallow corner, and Lonnie just took a really interesting entry into Abbey. Just went off track, got loose, and it was on from there. Unfortunately, Robert Waddell, just a victim of circumstances, and was trying to miss Lonnie and actually lost control of his own car. So unfortunately, those two pretty much done for the day. I'm not sure if they have a fast repair or not to their, I guess, doing. But really unfortunate for those two who were just trying to hang on. Robert Waddell and Lonnie Fitch were already, I believe, at least 1 lap down.
Yeah, and that just goes along with the point that you can be running a great race for 56 laps, and then all of a sudden you hit one corner and your whole entire race is gone like that. So very unfortunate for the drivers involved, and I'm not sure if they have a fast repair or not, but it looks like Lonnie Finch will be back on track. So yes, he does. So he'll be able to get some points out of this race at least, while we still have a battle going on for 3rd place.
Yeah, Richard McClure still trying to catch back up to Ross Banfield, as Banfield kind of took a bit of an advantage from that wreck, because McClure had to back out, and it caused a bit of a gap to be opened up. And now McClure is starting to close that back up once more, as he gets a bit of a toe down the hanger straight, just kind of gains a little bit of ground onto him going into this next corner. And now he's just got to try to figure out, he's only got a few more laps to do it. We're about 6.5 laps away from the checkered flag, so he's got to start coming up with a plan soon to be able to not only catch up to Banfield the rest of the way, but to also where he's going to set up this pass and make this move.
And McClure is doing what he has to do right now. He is pressuring Banfield the best that he can, and right there coming down into Brooklands, he actually had a pretty good chance. He got a big run. Couldn't do anything with it, of course, he's too far back, but he is certainly making advances at Banfield. He's certainly in Banfield's mirror, and Banfield runs wide on the exit of Brooklands, so now it's going to be McClure sliding. These two are on old tires. They're just going at it, and this is going to be a good race, and oh my goodness me. Richard McClure goes around out of, I believe that was Lutfield, and that certainly messes that whole thing up. Ross Banfield, I think, will have third place, and now the focus, I guess, is going to shift to Kevin Hill and Richard McClure. They're only about a half a second apart. And we'll get the replay up on your screen. I need to stop talking about people.
Commentator's curse, gotta love it, Kelly. And now, as you said, or excuse me, Andrew. And now, oh my gosh, very, very unfortunate, more unfortunate circumstances for Richard McClure as he gets tagged by the number 17 trying to get out of his way, but the wheels tap and he goes flying airborne, lucky to stay on all four tires. Replay up on your screen for that one. As you remember, he just came out of the final corner, unfortunately spinning and trying to catch up to Kevin Hill and touch his tires with the number 37 machine of Terry Woolman.
Yeah, that was a huge wheel hop. Richard McClure trying to emulate a pro Mazda driver, gets a lot of air underneath that car. Thankfully, just kind of lands in the grass. I don't know if there's going to be too much damage to Richard McClure's car, but unfortunately, that's going to pretty much take any sort of chance of him being able to catch up to Kevin Hill. And now Mike Kelly has actually gone around him, so move Mike Kelly up into 5th place, Richard McClure back into 6th. And really just not a couple of laps that Richard McClure would just kind of want to forget.
Yeah, but 10 points for style. That was pretty Travis Pastrana-esque right there. That was, I mean, of course, unfortunate for him, but honestly, he really is lucky to not have gone completely over, because once you get a car like this up in the air, it turns into an airplane and goes every which way. So, unfortunate, but also pretty lucky, and quite honestly, I think that was a pretty good audition for the X Games. And
back to, I believe that we have a battle shaping up for Mike Kelly and Richard McClure. Mike Kelly right in front of him, about a second separating them two. Richard McClure can see 5th place right in front of him. I'm sure he'd like a top 5 finish for this race, and 6 cars on the lead lap. And I'd like to tip another cap to Smith. He has grown just such a sizable gap, lapping basically or almost all the field, and still pulling a gap on Michael Lane with a 48-second gap still with some laps to go.
So Mike Kelly, he's got a bit more of an advantage to be able to hold off Richard McClure. Richard McClure's got some front wing damage. He's definitely got a lot of damage after his little airborne escapade there. That's going to really hamper his opportunity to chase after Mike Kelly. And honestly, I have no idea how Richard McClure's even driving, because that car should have just been absolutely wrecked after he got airborne, but somehow it doesn't seem to be too much damage. It definitely is a bent up front wing. I'm trying to see if there's any difference in the sides of his cars in relation to really just how the wheels are positioned. Maybe he broke, wondering if he maybe broke knocked the wheels out of toe or out of camber, but at the moment it's looking like his car is all right, but Mike Kelly is starting to pull away because just that difference in the car's damage.
It looked like a really, really unlucky situation for McClure. I don't think he damaged anything really aside from the left front wing. I think everything else was fine, which is miraculous given the circumstances. You don't just put a car up on 3 wheels, at least a Lotus 79 up on 3 wheels, and expect it to not have damage when it slams back down onto the ground. But he was very lucky, almost miraculous. He's going to lose a lot of positions here, at least, well, 3. But all in all, it's not that bad of a situation. He loses a few spots, but keeps going, and he's still in the lead lap currently. Of course, Eric Smith is right on his gearbox just about, but he's not in the worst of situations, at least compared to what he could have experienced with that whole deal there with Wellman.
Yeah, and another testament to these cars is obviously the tires should be really out of skew after hitting, but really great job by these cars, still able to hold up, and Richard McClure still able to hold on to a good finish for tonight's event, and I'm sure he's going to be happy with what he has, given the circumstances of that terrible lap a few laps ago. So good job by him, and You know, everybody else spread out pretty good, so it's going to have to take a, you know, another incident for another shakeup to happen.
Well, Eric Smith goes around his teammate at the moment to put another car a lap down, so that leaves just Mike Kelly as the last car on the lead lap. So only the top 5 cars are on the lead lap at the moment, as Eric Smith a 48-second lead over Michael Lane. Michael Lane himself is running about 20 seconds over Ross Banfield, so the top 3 really spread out far apart from each other. And that's kind of been the story of this whole race. Eric Smith fought a little bit in the opening lap to hold on to his race lead, but after that, after he kind of got back around Kevin Hill, Eric Smith just took off and has not looked back since.
Yeah, and as far as big movers, kind of a bit of a shift here, but we talked about Brandon Whitworth early in the race, going from 15th up to 3rd, even 2nd at one point, I think. He's currently now back to 7th, relegated there due to pit strategy, but still a really big gain there. Another big gain goes to Mike Kelly from 11th to 5th, a good run there. Didn't have the greatest starting spot, but has worked through some adversity, kept at it, and should come away here with a top 5 as long as nothing else happens.
Yeah, again, you know, it just takes one corner to, you know, mess everything up, but everybody doing such a great job up in this top position. So, you know, 2 laps to go here. This should be the white flag for Eric Smith. So we'll see his last lap come to fruition and watch him take a sizable lead and finish strong with this.
Yeah, but I think we're going back to the biggest mover. I think our actual biggest mover of the race is Jose Pabon. Currently sitting in 11th. He started all the way back in 22nd, but going back to Eric Smith, he's still trying to lap another car. Mike Kelly trying to hold on to the last lead lap position in 5th place. Eric Smith trying to see if he can put another car a lap down, but I'm sure Eric's not going to push anything, do anything stupid on the very last lap of his race, because even though he's got a 49-second lead, one wrong move could put him out of this race, and really, it is just his race to win at this moment. Oh, Mike Kelly actually loses control of the car, and he slaps it off into the runoff, so Eric Smith will end up putting him a lap down.
The question now is he going to go behind Richard McClure? I think he's going to be safe. I think McClure's still a little ways back. He just got through Abbey. So Mike Kelly going to hang on to that spot as Eric Smith heading down into the final couple corners, Lutfield and Brooklands here.
Well, Eric Smith has held on to a dominating race and just run from start to finish pretty much in the lead. Fought a little bit early on, but he was able to overcome the challenge he was faced early on, and since then has dominated this race from start to finish. Eric Smith will win the classic British Grand Prix in an absolutely amazing fashion. 50 seconds over Michael Lane. And Michael Lane still has another lap to pretty much complete because Eric Smith was just that far ahead.
Yeah. Absolute dominance by Smith and by everybody else. Once it got a little bit simmered down, they were just able to set sights on only the road ahead of them and continue to just pull gaps. And, you know, the pit strategy at the midway race point of this race, you know, it shook some things up, but everything came out basically how was it supposed to?
Yeah, it was really just a bit of a thriller further back. Eric Smith, though, like you mentioned, Kelly, always many steps ahead of the competition here today. But really, it was still a great race further back as these guys start to come across the line. I had a lot of fun today. Mike Kelly put on a show, Richard McClure, Ross Banfield, Jake Fox even for a while. It was a lot of fun.
Well, here comes Ross Banfield out of the final corner, and he will now finally solidify the last spot on the podium, which was really the spot that was battled for throughout the race. We saw multiple battles for it. We saw, I think, a 5-car fight for that position early on in this race, and that was really the position that was swapped around the most. But basically a minute 9 seconds later, after Eric Smith crossed the line, Banfield finally finished it off. So we have finally got, I think, all of our drivers locked in, finally all finished. But we're going to take a quick step aside for the moment, and when we return, we'll go through your full field rundown, and hopefully we'll talk to your top 3 finishers.
chair of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerrick at the line.
Team racing allows multiple iRacing members to team up and race together, just like in real-world endurance series. Teammates can share driving duties, spot for one another, or be a crew chief. Team racing is free both to join a team and to create one. Each teammate races on his or her own computer from wherever they want to. Your teammates can be anywhere in the world, and changing drivers mid-race is as easy as a click of a button. iRacing features team endurance events ranging from just a couple of hours to 24 hours in length. So, if you fancy taking part in an iRacing endurance race in the future, you can learn more about team racing on the teams page on the member website.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.
Welcome back to the post-race show for the Atlantic Major Series British Grand Prix, or the Classic British Grand Prix. And Eric Smith, we just watched him just kind of take control of this race. Absolutely dominating finish. So we'll go through your full field here. Eric Smith wins by a margin of 50 seconds. Michael Lane will come home in second. Ross Banfield will hold on to that final step on the podium. Kevin Hill, the last car on the lead lap, in fourth. Fifth will go to Mike Kelly. Richard McClure in 6th. 7th goes to Brandon Whitworth. Claude Belval in 8th. 9th goes to Jake Fox. And rounding out the top 10, that's the 35 for Rory Collins.
The biggest mover of the race finishes in 11th. That's Jose Brown in the 705 car. Andy Banfield finishes in 12th. Brian Barney finishes 13th. Then it's Joshua Kanata and Kevin O'Keefe rounding out your top 15. Following Kevin O'Keefe up is Simon Thorns in 16th position. Then it's Jason Wallet, Lonnie Fitch, Terry Wellman, and Scott Kukas rounding out your top 20.
21st will go to Eddie Hawks. Rob Powers, 22nd. 23rd, Jonathan Diggs. Thomas Peterson finishes 24th. 25th, Ivo Andrini. 26th, Robert Waddell. Eric Klein, P27. P28, Carl Burke. And rounding out your 29, Carfield, James Noon.
Well, it was definitely a fun race to watch. I was kind of afraid of, maybe a few drivers running away and just kind of creating a bit of a gap, and that is kind of what happened for the lead, but we did have battles all throughout the race, and it was really focused on that third place. It seems like everyone just kind of wanted that last step on the podium.
Yeah, it was always a fun battle to watch, at least somewhere in the middle of the top 10 or so. We had battles at one point from 3rd on back to 10th. It was always exciting, it felt like, up in the front of the field, even if Eric Smith was out there by 50 seconds, which at the end he was. It was just a great race to watch, honestly, and these guys never gave up all the way down to the end. Ross Banfield, Richard McClure, and Kevin Hill were just battling tooth and nail to get that 3rd spot.
Yeah, and just watching all these drivers adapt to what they had thrown at them today, obviously coming from the Indy 500, and then next week next race will be the 2.4 hours of Spa, and after that another IndyCar race. So just watching all these drivers adapt to every single car that they have to deal with and every single track that they have to deal with is just amazing, and I tip my hat to everybody here. And Smith did such a great job, Lane did such a great job, and all these other drivers did such a great job. Really only one slip up that we saw, and that was the start, and then everybody else just did such a great job.
Yeah, definitely a fantastic race to watch, and I hope everyone else will come back to join us in a few weeks' time. August 5th is going to be the next major series race. That's, as mentioned, the 2.4 hours of Spa. That'll be GT3 cars around Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and that's always a very exciting track and a very exciting combo as well. But as for the moment, that's going to do it here for us. Make sure you follow LSR TV on social media. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official. Follow us as well on Twitter at LSRTV. And we'd like to thank you all for standing by and watching us. We'd like to thank as well Jason Allison and ibog.co for graphical support, the Major Series and Mike Willett for the series, Drew Adamson and the staff behind the scenes at iRacing Live, everyone behind the scenes at LSR TV, Evan Pasoko, Laura Lawson, and DJ Lyon, and for myself, Trevin Valderrama, Andrew Cardinal, and Cisco Scaramuzzi. We'd like to thank you very much for watching with us tonight. We hope to see you next time.